Well, welcome to the True Man Podcast with Mike Van Pelt, the comeback coach, helping you gain peace, clarity, and understanding in your walk with God as a man, a father, and a spouse. Hey, get involved with the show. Send your email to mike@truemanlifecoaching.com. If you're wondering what's gone adrift in my masculine soul and asking, is there more to life? This is where it begins. This is the True Man Podcast. Well, welcome to the True Man Podcast. This is an invitation to radical reconstruction of a man's masculine heart and soul in a place of safe community where we dare to ask questions deep-seated inside a man and explore ways to help you become a better man, a better son, a better dad, and a better spouse. Well, welcome back to the True Man Podcast. Always great to have you listening to another great podcast. And in today's episode, we are going to embark on what can be a profound journey for a man, examining a topic close to my heart, really what True Man Life Coaching, one of the things that it's about, the importance of a man leading their families well, all for the glory of God. And today's guest knows this topic well, as well. He is the founder of Zoweh, Michael Thompson. But before we get into that, what I want to do today is pray over today's podcast. So pray with me now. Lord, I pray that this podcast will find its way into the heart of a man that is searching for his identity, for his greatness, for his heart. And I pray that it leads a man to take action on himself, not just for himself, but for his family and for his glory, of the glory of his calling in life, Lord. Lord, we know there are men out there searching for freedom in their lives, and I hope that this podcast will help them see the light, a way to begin moving forward to become a king in the kingdom, the king that they were called to be, Lord God. We pray this in your holy name. Amen. All right. Well, now with that, let's get on to today's podcast guest, Michael Thompson, and I'll be back with you with some additional commentary after the interview. So enjoy our conversation. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the True Man Podcast. Now, have you ever had a moment of clarity in your life that sticks out to you like you're never going to forget it? It's that lightning bolt type moment where God sends you a package and you get to begin unpacking what's in that gift. Well, I had that very thing happen to me. It was at a men's retreat in Goshen, Virginia, with about 300 other men in the spring of 2019. And when today's podcast guest stood in front of the room and said, today we're going to play 3 worship songs, and I want you to think of them as God saying these words to you. Well, the only song that I remember that morning was a song by Josh Groban entitled, You Are Loved, Don't Give Up. And I really needed to hear those words in that moment. And well, the results are still playing out here today. I'm still unpacking it here almost 40 years later. But what a gift. So I want you to welcome to the podcast today, Michael Thompson. Now, Michael is the founder and director of Zoweh. It's a nonprofit's mission to encourage men and women and marriages by creating tools, resources, and community spaces that invite people to experience inner healing and intimate connection with God and others. Now, he's the author of a new book, King Me, and I'm just thrilled to have him on the podcast today. So, Michael, great to have you on. How are you?
I'm good. I had not heard that particular story about Josh Groban and that morning. I love that because it happened to me. There's a reason I wanted to play that song, and I remember the first time I heard it. If Jesus sings, then he might sound a lot like Josh Groban. Maybe we'll see. But I thought,
we hope.
Oh my gosh, he is singing to me through that song, and I needed it. So I love that you shared that in the opening. And man, it's good to be with you, Mike. Yeah, was 19 your first event?
2019 was my
Okay.
first event, and there probably would have been a couple more in there, but as you're well aware, COVID had other
Yeah, yeah.
ideas.
Yeah, we got all
Um,
shut down.
and,
Yeah.
and yeah, and so life has really changed for me since that 2019. Much of it really was not predictable, but what I'm grateful for was the opportunity to be exposed to that kind of environment with
Mm,
all those men and begin that healing process. And
yeah.
that so many men, and we're going to talk about that today, but maybe we should start with you, because
Okay.
you just didn't start one day and go, "Hey, I'm going to do this Zoweh thing and invite men." And there had to be a little bit of healing go on with you as well. So
Yeah.
so
I
talk
was
about where all this
I was
kicks off.
perfectly content with my spiritual coma that I was
Yeah.
in, and kind of like Neo, right, in the Matrix,
Oh yeah.
a bit plugged in. And I think you can be a Christian and still be plugged into the Matrix, and I think that's part of my story, Mike. But yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I loved the journey. Grew up in a faith family, Christian. Went to church a lot. I could say I did a lot of time,
Yeah.
and but I mean, we were Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I mean, it was just a very, and a lot of it really good. From those middle school and high school years, church was quite, yeah, it was a place that not only did my family and I brothers identify with, but yeah, a place that we also learned some of the things that we needed to unlearn, if I'm honest. And service and obedience were a part of that. Sin management was a part of that.
I have to
And
laugh because
so,
this all sounds a little bit like my story. Yeah, I
yeah,
get it.
we talked. And so, when I think that plays into, your question about kind of my personal journey, or, hopefully any of us, right, our own evolution in the kingdom,
Yeah.
and the invitation to become more, not necessarily do more, but be more. And so I really, with athletics in our family and college basketball and stuff, honestly, Mike, there was a trading in of doing and accomplishing and achieving, because it wasn't just the faith journey. That's kind of what a man faces, and what he learns, that I'm valuable based on what I do. I'm
Yeah.
valuable based on my contribution. I'm valuable, or I'm not valuable, or in some ways, the conditions are that if I can't do something valuable, then I'm not good, you know or I'm not good in that space or in that moment. And so I had a lot of that kind of carried in carrying me, or weighing me down, probably in the Christian journey. And got very committed to Christ, accepted him several times on the journey. Did as many upgrades as you thought a
Yeah.
phone. You thought a phone had upgrades. I mean, I was upgrading every chance I could on in my Christianity. And so then was on staff with a wonderful organization, Campus Crusade. 17 years. My wife and I met on staff. Lots of good things, and yet there was a pivoting moment, and we all have them,
Yeah.
whether it's the Josh Groban song, or there's just a season where things change. And so I'm on staff. I can do my job as a professional Christian. Uh, Loved what we were doing on staff, and I run in back then in '99, 2000. I run into the book Wild at Heart, that ran into many men, many men. I was a promise keeper in the Promise Keepers movement,
Yeah.
and I was a wild man in the next decade in Wild at Heart. But John Eldredge was talking about things there that were different than keeping seven promises.
Oh man.
He was
Yeah.
talking about some deeper heart issues. And I think one is important when you're in elementary school, or you're learning simple ways of how things work as a boy. Your dad can say, because I told you so, and he can say it kindly or he can say it meanly. But the bottom line is, because he's the authority. So, stay right next to me. Do not cross the street. Do not fall into that pit.
Yeah.
So there's things that are really important at an elementary level in your journey. And so, but it's not good. What he needs to teach you how to do, and he should, is to look both ways rather than just don't and do and don't, but to learn for yourself how to watch for traffic and move across that street. So take that into the spiritual journey and the faith journey. So I think I was being invited to move from some obedience, which is not a bad thing, keeps you out of a lot of trouble
Yeah,
if you'll
for
just
sure.
obey. But to learn how to walk with God and to learn how to hear his voice. So John starts to, poke at a very fragile faith construct that I had that was kind of very, very simplified. There's the cross, you're a sinner, you're the problem. Jesus had to save you,
Yeah.
and he did, and you should be thankful, and now you should obey. And I think that can get you through a lot of the early years of the faith journey, learning the Bible,
Yeah.
learning the principles of faith, all of that stuff, Mike. But
It
I
catches up to you later on in
it
life.
did, and
Yeah.
it did. And it
Yeah.
can run you over, because I was very dry. I was in my heart, I would say, was a bit of a desert and parched and looking for not service. I couldn't tell you then, but I wasn't being sustained well by service and obedience.
Boy, does that sounds so familiar. And I
But
think that's a
yeah,
lot of guys.
I started wandering. I thought,
Yeah.
well, I know, I'll go to seminary. I'll double down. I'm going to go to seminary and get more serious about my faith. And I'm at the time, yeah, how old am I? 30. Yeah, I'm 35 when I'm doubling down, because all I knew was more sit-ups and push-ups, more commitment, get more serious.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't find intimacy with God in seminary, I did find more knowledge. God kind of circles me with Wild at Heart at 38, 39, and I start even considering this idea, right, Mike, of intimacy.
Yeah.
And I realized I know a lot about God, but I'm not sure I I enjoy him and he enjoys me. And that's where the hole started to get poked in a very fragile kind of faith construct. And I'm so glad it did. I mean, I very much believe it was God kind of saying, all right, enough upgrades. Let's downgrade. Let's get over here into a space of, I love you, Michael. I just love you. Well, why do you love me? I just do. I can't not. You're my son. You're my image bearer. These are
Yeah.
things I'm starting to not just read about. I'm starting to experience, like you did in the Josh Groban song. I'm
Yeah.
starting to hear it in the woods on walks. I'm starting to feel it when I'm driving.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that we could kind of tune our hearts to that space with God. And that was the beginning of kind of that's how Zoweh really started. Was I needed eventually to move from one space in a wonderful ministry like Campus Crusade and into kind of another space, which is what brought us together and connected us in an event. And then, we've had a few porch times and we've had a few gathering spaces and things like that, Mike. But that's kind of how, in a nutshell, it started. And officially, I did go through seminary. I got a biblical counseling degree, but along the way, I really got an intimacy degree by just learning how to listen to God and walk with
Yeah.
the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Spirit. And so that's how Zoweh started, and that was back in 06. So we've been paddling on that, in that canoe since.
Well, I'm glad you're paddling
Mm.
because, when I started down this trail of being a part of men's group, so we'll do our Haynes Maxwell shout out. It was
Yeah.
Haynes that actually introduced Paul Bailey and I to Zoweh, and we started checking it out, and
Yeah.
And, you know, the beautiful part about having somebody in your life that kind of keeps you accountable or goes, well, is this a crazy idea? We go to this retreat in Virginia, or is it? Oh, there's my thumb. It's a good is a good. You know what? And Paul and I just kind of, well, let's do this. And we
Mm,
had no expectation. We had no idea what was going on. I'd never been at anything like that in my life. And, you know, I grew up in the Lutheran church, and it was funny because I said it felt like every time I sat down, and it didn't matter. I was floating all over. There was somebody from behind me shouting amen or something. And I was like ducking my head. I thought rounds of fire were coming over my shoulder
mm,
because you know we don't perform like that in the Lutheran church. We're pretty stoic, you know. And but it was really, it wasn't, the song was kind of the epiphany moment, but it
mm,
was the entire weekend, that opportunity to be around guys that were all searching for that more, you know, that
mhm,
freedom, that intimacy,
mm.
and that I had missed in very much in the same way that you had in your life. And it really opened up things for me. And I went, well, how do I how do I help guys? You know, this
Yeah.
is a shame, you know. We can't have guys wandering around wondering what to do, you know. So
Mm,
I totally get it. And you know, and I encourage people all the time to check out Zoe's website and the podcast, and because it was such a gift for me.
mm.
And now I get to pass it on in my own kind of true man community
Yeah, I love
um,
it. Love what you're
way.
doing. Mhm. Yeah, love that.
So talk about Zoe, and then we'll get into the book a little bit, but
Mhm,
I want people to hear about Zoe because of
mhm.
what you guys provide for not just men, but for
Yeah,
women and couples.
right.
There's a lot going on there, and we don't want to forget our elder sages either, right?
That's right. The old elder sages, those wise, well, those with wise and discerning hearts. Yeah, Zoe, the story of Zoe is, it's the Greek word for life. When Jesus says, "I came that you might have life," that word is Zoe, and
Mm,
it means a quality and a depth of life. C.S. Lewis had I found it later after kind of the Zoe word and its meaning hit me. C.S. Lewis talks in Mere Christianity about the difference between bios and Zoe, a biological and the physical, and Zoe. And he says in the bios life, there's an upkeep by oxygen and nutrition, and warmth, and there's some things
yeah.
you have to do to upkeep the. But in the Zoe life, he says it's a life that's kept up in intimacy with God.
Mm.
And it was just that day that I kind of came across it in Mere Christianity. I really thought it with my tongue in cheek. C.S. Lewis is stealing our stuff, man. That's incredible. Um,
He
how
didn't miss much, did
yeah,
he?
how great, how awesome is that? So anyway, but that was so Zoe is, when you I know in your coaching space, you do ask people, what's your why?
Yeah.
And so what's Zoe's why? And our website answer is because it's our heart's answer. And that was the discovery of, we were made for more. Why does Zoe exist? Because we have seen and experienced that we were made for more life, more love, more freedom. And that's what the kingdom life really is. It's an exploration of those things. It's a walking with the Trinity in those spaces. And so what we do, and you mentioned it in the opening, we love to create environments and
Mhm.
resources and have relationships, right, with people
Yep.
that invite them and encourage them and equip them to walk intimately with God and each other. So it's the love God, love each other, you know, idea of when Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? And so in doing that, we're supposed to have this abundant life, a full life.
Yeah.
And honestly, I go back to those earlier chapters, Mike, and I did feel like somehow I missed the bus on full and abundant life. I again, I got the service life.
There's a bus for that?
Yeah, yeah, and who knew I had a bus pass? I didn't know I had a bus pass.
No.
So,
Oh man.
getting on the wrong bus and ending up in the wrong place. But all of that to say, yeah, I really that's kind of how Zoweh came about, and it's spelled Zoweh. It was really fun. There's a phonetic in I think the vines, and it said like Yahweh. It's pronounced it's
Mm.
spelled Zoe, but then people were calling us Zoe, and I used to have a dog named Zoe. I just couldn't do it, so we went with the phonetic of
Yeah.
Yahweh. Zoweh. It's pronounced like Yahweh, and so yeah, that's how we got started back in '06, and kind of transferred our attention to that space, and then over time, we were kind of ransom heart, wild at heart allies in the beginning, and then over time, you discover things in the kingdom. You can use other people's maps, and you
Yeah.
should. You should. Other people have written about podcasting. Other people have written about coaching. Other
Yeah.
people have written and left, good teaching and good maps on lots of things in the kingdom. But what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to get to kind of build that foundation of trust, and then go exploring with God and discover for yourself that these things are true, and they're not just true because Paul or James wrote them, or John or C.S. Lewis
Yeah.
wrote them. They're true, and you get to discover them, for yourself in that intimate way. And so that's what we'd love to do, is try to help people, get that equipment and that encouragement of, yeah, I think he wants to talk to you too. I mean, he's not mad. He's not upset with you.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever might be in the way of receiving God's love, we love helping people kind of get some of that stuff out of the way so that they can experience the love and life of God.
Well, it's important stuff. I mean, we all have to take a look in the mirror,
Yeah.
and so you're probably, if you're doing it and you're taking a good hard look, you're probably not going to like everything you see.
Yeah.
But
And
it's an important step, and in your faith life. And speaking of that, I'm going to hold this up for the people. So the camera, if you're seeing this on camera, you can see I've got Michael's latest book, King Me. And I think this is an important book from, first of all, I just love the analogy of King Me, quite honestly, and playing checkers.
Oh yeah.
That's just cool in and of itself. But this book really digs into a little bit further in some of your previous works, like Heart of a Warrior. We're digging into manhood here and masculinity, and unfortunately, when we have to go down this road and we start talking about masculinity and where it's at, it's not in a great place, and so
Right.
unfortunately, and so but I think the important part is that we have great books and material that we can look at and go, okay, if it's not in a great place, or am I not in a great place, how can I get to a great place, and what
Yeah.
resources can I use, and what's available? So talk about King Me and how that came about,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm. Well, I think everybody should write a book or two. Honestly, a pamphlet of
Oh
some
boy,
brief, somebody,
I'm
because
right there with
because
you, Michael. I'm in the process of,
I love it. Good, do it.
oh,
And it is hard. It's hard work, and articulating what you feel, and what you see, and what you think, and what you're
yeah,
hopeful for. So that's the work of whether you're journaling or it becomes something that gets more in a published space. But I just want to say that, Mike, because it is
yeah,
so when I think about authorship, you are sharing from some conviction and from some place that you feel something pretty significant about. So I say that to
Yep.
say King Me is a part of my story. 3 years in writing and organizing thought and trying to help a reader not get lost on all the bunny trails that he could, with all the things that are happening to us on our journey. So to lay that out and to line that outline up to walk in that. So yeah, it came out in March
Yeah.
of 23. So probably 3 years or so in the making. But even
Which
that,
which I thought was a long time until I started writing.
yeah, because you write a book,
Oh,
if you go
man.
into that process of publishing like that, you might write it 6 or 7 times, and that's before you get some real deep help, in that editing process. I'm not a great writer. I have people. My friend Bob is so good at the technical part, but I do love telling stories. I do love inviting people into seeing their stories
Yeah.
and trying to encourage them that their lives matter and what's happened to them matters. And definitely, Mike, as we know, what you've concluded about what's happened to you may not be accurate,
Oh,
may
boy.
not be, maybe.
Chances
So
are pretty high it's not.
so yeah, what are the odds, right? We ask this all the time. What are the odds you've interpreted your life accurately? That is a
I
great
use that
invitation.
question a lot
Mm,
because, what I found is it's one of those questions where it just stops so many people dead in their tracks when they hear it if they have never heard that question
yeah.
because, it's like you can't help but pause and go, "Ooh, well, what
What's that mean?
yeah, what if
Yeah.
that's really true?"
Right. Yeah.
So I use that question quite a bit, and I've found it to be a highly effective thing to ask people.
Yeah, I like that. Stop them in their tracks. Kind of that. It's a provoking question, and so. But what if there was not an answer, but what if there was a direction to go
Mm.
to explore what all that even means? So you're saying I haven't interpreted my life accurately, or what how does that even affect somebody if that's true? So King Me, was and is a book about primarily the masculine journey. It's got 4 parts to it. The first few chapters, we look at the heart of a king because we really need to get Jesus kind of in his place as the King of Kings. What does that mean, and what does that look like? And I think the punchline in those first couple chapters is, if you don't want to be like Jesus, then something's probably not right. And so I think The Chosen has done a phenomenal
Oh my
job
gosh,
of
yes.
of inviting us to, I like that Jesus, or at least
Oh,
how that figure and depiction.
yeah,
Not
you
that you
can't
didn't.
take your eyes off that guy if you're watching the
And he's
program. I
brought
mean,
and they have made him, very what the scriptures call God man, son of God, son of man.
mm,
I mean, he is embodied in that character that they've brought to life in The Chosen. And it's very, very biblical, but it also brings that first century way to all of it. So anyway, Mike, that's the whole. If we're going to be good kings
yeah.
in our 40s, 50s, and 60s, which I'll talk about in a minute, we really need the poster that inspires us of an image that we bear that says, I want to be like him.
Mm.
And the beautiful thing about sanctification, right? There's a good Lutheran church term, and you're not Lutherans aren't
Can
the
I
only one,
get an
right?
amen?
Yeah, amen. So the good thing about sanctification is that's who we are becoming, and
Yeah.
that's why it's important to see him in a light and in a way that really you understand. There's training and and there's something the Father is up to in his sons and daughters, in right taking away the things that are in the way of being loved, and helping the true you emerge, right, and getting those things off of you that aren't you. And really the enemy has done a number on all of us when we were So there's some introduction in that first part of the book
Yeah.
about some of the story that our story's in. And if you, you know, any character, right, that has some of those stories, like we brought up Neo in the Matrix, or, you know, Alice in Wonderland, or Dorothy and Oz, or, you know, the children, the Pevensey children in Narnia, they they don't they don't know kind of the larger environment, the larger space, and they're trying to get clarity and acclamation and understanding. And I think a lot of Christians, that's another part of the book early, is we really have to see the larger story that our story's in. Otherwise, it's going to be very challenging to walk with God intimately in that story. So,
What's interesting is, and I'm kind of curious because I'm hearing this and I'm replaying some of the retreat weekends. And one of the
mm,
things that you guys have brought into the retreat weekends that is just outstanding are movie clips.
yeah,
And what's interesting is the story, and that come out of those movies that is so applicable, to our lives. And it's really kind of funny, Michael. I was over we flew into London and went to Ireland this summer, which was a
oh,
fantastic it
I'm
was a
already envious.
fantastic trip. And
Yeah,
now here's where you're really going to get envious. And I have to bring this up because, quite honestly, it seems to me everybody's got a pretty favorite movie clip that you play at the retreats. So we pull up in the Meat District of London, and in that area is one of the oldest cathedrals, if not the oldest cathedral in London. And we just pull up, right? I know this guy's driving us. We pull up, and there's this plaque on the wall, and I'd hold it up, but nobody'd see it anyway. And it says Sir William Wallace.
yeah,
And it was right in the area, as best they can figure out, where William Wallace was put to death, and then they had his funeral at the church. And I get out of the car and
mm,
my eyes just got and I'm like, whoa, do I know a lot of dudes who'd like to be standing
yeah,
here right now?
man,
And I took a picture, and William Wallace is one of those movie characters. It's one of those movie clips that just get everybody fired up at the retreats. But it's not just about getting fired up. It's about the story and the
yeah,
and the story of our lives. So talk about how you use movie clips
mm,
really to set that up for people so that they can kind of, again, look in the mirror at themselves and go, okay, I've seen
yeah,
that movie clip, and maybe it's a moment where they go, oh, that's me.
yeah. Yeah, man, great question. Big trade secret, right? We get to unveil a little bit of the well, and you mentioned it, right, Mike? It's the power of story,
Oh
and
man.
and how we resonate. So I believe that there are these certain, strings or chords in the hearts of image bearers,
Yeah.
men and women, and that story has a way of touching those. It's why we buy the movies that we actually
Yeah.
saw once and want to own it, and want to watch it again and again. It's very important. Madeline Langle, she says that story is the language of the heart.
Mm.
And so, our, I mean, and really the gospel from Genesis to Revelation honestly is a story.
Yeah.
It's a true story. It's the most true story. But sometimes over those years of church, and I got so familiar with the story that I could finish the phrases or the sentences as the pastor's reading, Matthew 4 or John 9 or Corinthians. So those films, though, like Braveheart or Gladiator. What's the one that Ryan Reynolds was in not too long ago about Adam? The Adam Project.
Oh, yeah, yes, yes. I
That's
have
one
not
that I
seen that
that's
yet.
oh, bro, you got to get in it. So we've used that one recently,
Yeah.
and because it's that story, of a time travel, if you will, and an older man visiting his younger boy. I mean, it's so in alignment with some of our
Yes.
conversation about
Yeah.
going back in your story so you can go forward less encumbered by the things that happen to you. So the Adam Project was one of those, like when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the gospel. This is restoration. This is redemption. This is the interpretation of what my father did and didn't do, and the rewriting of it. Okay, that's enough of the Adam Project commercial. So anybody who, I mean, I just highly recommend that story be entered into, because it touches a part of you that you relate to. You'll relate
Yeah.
to the characters, the older, the younger, the they're being hunted. Here comes the
Yeah.
evil from the future is trying to, you know, not only thwart but take out, Adam. Interesting, right? That it's Adam. We have our Adam in Genesis,
Right.
and it's the Adam Project, right? And so very, very. I mean, Hollywood has been borrowing, and Disney has been stealing, all the great elements of the great story, because good and evil, once upon a time, happily ever after, those are the things that we, don't grow out of, and yet those can be the things that we, yeah, we deny our hearts the ability to connect with and resonate with,
I,
and
I
and
think
that's just
I think
challenging.
it's important, Michael. What the movie introduction has done for me is I don't look at anything like that the same anymore. In fact, last night my wife and I, we were doing a little catch up, doing a little rerun of Yellowstone, which is absolutely one of my favorite
Is it?
program, because I just, it makes me want to be a cowboy. And there is a scene in there, and one of the elder sages passes away while they're out, getting
Mm,
cattle. He doesn't wake up, and I've seen this before, and I'm over there just tearing up. And it
mm,
was the words. It was just the way everything played out. It was just the message, right? It was just so
mm,
loving, so tender, the way another man treated another man in a
yeah.
situation where he didn't wake up, you know? And then he, has got to go tell the guy's wife. And, I think 6, 7, 8 years ago, I probably wouldn't have thought anything of it.
Mm,
But it's the tenderness of that moment and the words
yeah.
being said and how it's
Mhm.
handled, where you see Hollywood has really touched, and
Yeah.
brought in God, and
Whether they
yeah,
know it or not.
you don't
I
have
mean,
to know.
they're
You
not
feel it.
trying to write another version of The Chosen when they tell those stories, but when you confess that hit one of those heartstrings, that touched me, that
Oh,
moved
man.
me, words like that. I mean, the kingdom of God is supposed to be like that for us. And so I think story, to your point and to mine, is you need to know your story,
Yeah.
you need to know the larger story, and you need to be able to pay attention to how you actually interact, with stories, and whether they are a children's story. My wife and I discovered Charlie Mackesy a couple years ago, who wrote The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And this is short cartoon, 30 minutes. And it's on Apple TV. Another one before or after the Adam Project, right? And that's one you can watch with your kids, and you can watch with your family, and you'll just see, Mike, that
Yeah.
there's certain stories that we keep telling over and over and over again. I've watched that cartoon, right? That animation with my adult girls, each one separately, to watch what it did to them.
Ooh,
And
wow.
it is a gospel animation story. It's and the author, the cartoonist, is very kind and loves Jesus. Very good man, but very, yeah, very effective at creating a, yeah, an invitation to feel deeply. And I think, King Me I write about Les Mis in King Me.
Yeah.
I write about our Rudy.
Yeah.
I write about some of these classic
I
stories,
didn't,
and
Mike, that's such a great point. I did not, I remember the first time I went to go see Les Mis, it was a traveling Broadway thing. I didn't get it. I'm
mm,
like, I got nothing. Now I can't get to it fast enough, right?
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
watch it on television. I'll go to I'm like, because I get the story of what's really going on there.
right,
And it's
yeah,
it's incredibly impactful. Even Mr. Rogers. I mean, come on.
oh yeah,
I mean,
phenomenal.
I mean, the little did we know what Mr. Rogers was really talking about when we were growing up. And now as an adult,
Yeah,
especially after I saw the movie,
yeah,
and I even bought a book at a bookstore, Michael, entitled Everything I Learned from Mr.
Mr.
Rogers.
Rogers, great. And
And
before him, there was a book. There was a book out before that one. There was a book, Mike, called "The Most Important Things I Learned in Kindergarten." And so, you know, I mean,
right.
it's probably a different author and all that, but to your point, I mean,
But
he was
we get
so.
away from this stuff. We get away from
Mhm,
it, and it comes back in our, adult lives, and, part of your, the subtitle of King Me is loving and leading in a wounded world, and the problem is we get away from the Mister Rogers
mm,
stuff, and somewhere along the line, we just become wounded,
yeah,
and it happens to virtually every one of us somewhere along the line. Something, our hearts get wounded, and we
yeah,
forget about what Mr. Rogers was
yeah,
teaching us.
yeah. That's the whole. That's kind of the middle spaces of King Me.
Yeah.
You're teeing me up a little bit, but that's the journey.
Oh,
To
it was
look at
by
the
design.
masculine journey, to look at the feminine journey, to look at the journey that your heart's on, and to recognize it has been wounding. It hasn't all been good. Even a good
Mm,
or a great mom and dad, you know eventually you kind of get beyond their jurisdiction. You start to move into the jungle of middle school and high school, and now you've got all these other kids. And
yeah.
before there was social media, there was just the social culture of middle school and high. It's still there, but all this stuff that plays out, even on social media with likes and all the things that are very, very there's a reason it's so attractive and attracting young hearts. But young hearts aren't the only one, man. I know dudes that their phone will tell them how much they're on it. They're
Yeah.
engaged in their Instagrams and Facebooks and stuff. But I think there's a it's not a false sense. I don't want to say that much, but our desire to connect can really pull us into kind of a lesser way of connecting
Oh,
than than real interaction and real being with and having conversations. Texting somebody, it's not the same as having a conversation with them, though you can connect. It's
yeah.
just a different form of connecting. But that second part of the book is the journey of a king. So it's the heart of a king and the journey of a king, and it's just inviting a man to look back over the decades of his life. We call it developmental psychology in university and high school spaces with those. Yeah, what is the developmental cycles that we go through? What do we need
Yeah.
at each cycle? So we kind of dive into that, into the middle part of the book, and to your point, really shed as much light as we can on wounding moments that happen along our journey. People who were supposed to love and encourage and protect us, man, some of them they dropped the ball, and that's putting it, somewhat mildly in
Yeah.
some cases. And so recovering from that is not usually as yeah the word recovery. We don't always we just often don't recover from that. We just find a way to try to how soldier on, to
Yeah.
just continue to to survive, and that's a far cry from Zoweh, right? From life to the full.
Well, I think a
And
lot of
so
us,
very,
a
very
lot of us,
difficult.
we don't know what we don't know,
Yeah,
and this
don't
is
know
not
how
a
to get
yeah, this is
right.
not a fault of our, our father or their. Yeah, I mean, some things just seem to be kind of generational. We just pass them down from one
Mm,
person to the next.
yeah,
And let's face it, a lot of our dads, I mean, when they grew up during a wartime era, I mean, they saw what they saw, they
yeah.
did what they did, and, a lot of loving people, but that doesn't mean that, you know, that
They did
we
it
all know
right,
what
or
to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't mean that everything they did was right or done well. And that when you get into those later stages, especially in that the explore stage or the
Yeah.
teenage years and the young 20s, I mean, it's amazing that, many of us survived, like we did, but
It's true.
and yet the emotional scars or the emotional damage, the soul effect, that you carry with you, in spaces of I'll never do that again, or I'll always, we call them vows and agreements. We'll make
Mhm.
vows, and then we start to create an operating system of how to make life work, and how to protect ourselves, which we've talked about, and Mike in the conferences. But King Me had to write, revisit some of those things, break them down into these different segments of the masculine journey, and invite men particularly to look at what happened to me and how has it affected me. This goes back to our early question. So what are the odds you've
Yeah.
interpreted your life accurately? So to give 50 pages to, all right, let's dive into that and explore that, and help you even dive a little bit deeper into that, and hopefully come to God again and again with, this is what I found, and I don't like this. I don't want this. How do we turn that in? How do we walk with God in a space for actual healing, not just, confession of sin, which is a good thing, for goodness sakes. I
Yeah.
mean, but
Yeah.
but we're talking about before you started making some mistakes. What mistakes were made that affected you in the way of your heart and your journey? So I think, those kind of, that those middle chapters in Kimi are, yeah, a bit of reflection and invitation to explore your story. To There's some questions that kind of go along in that exploration, that if you'll go slow and with God, I believe He's going to help you discover some things that He would like for you to be free from, and He would like for you to turn them in for something else. If this isn't true about you, and you don't want it, I think you can get some help. I think there's lots of ways to get
Yeah.
deeper healing and deeper restoration, but some of the first real swings can become just seeing it. You have to see some of this stuff for yourself and bring that to God, and then now you're on a healing journey, not just a survival journey. What does it look like to walk with Him for healing, and to recover, and to be restored, and to become who you really are in the kingdom? And that's that checker. When you talked about the checkers at the beginning, moving across the board, yes, surviving and becoming a new piece, becoming something else, getting that validation that every man and woman longs for from God. What if you could get that validation and then become something new? And that's the last part of the book, is what does that look like to live as a good king, protecting and providing well for the hearts of others, right? Loving and leading in a wounding world. So all of that is kind of where, those chapters and those parts of the book kind of move to.
Well, I could speak with, well, I'm not there yet, but, when you get crowned king and you've, done a little work,
Mm.
and you can move around the board a little
Differently.
easier. It's nice. So that's why I love the analogy. Such a simple game, but yet
Yeah,
it has so much meaning to life, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah. And at that stage, you become even all that more. We were talking earlier offline just a minute, but you become, yeah, you're hunted in a different way now. The enemy,
Yeah.
if he can take a king out, it can be devastating to those under his care, to those entrusted to him to love. So it doesn't, even though your responsibility, your privileges become, you get to move differently as a king, so does the consequences if you don't, if you aren't able to defend against the enemy
Yeah.
and model even what it is to walk intimately with God. That's what our marriages, that's what our families, our children need. What if they had a dad who could tell stories of intimacy with God, not as a Bible study necessarily, or a you need to do this, but rather that's just kind of how a father could roll
Yeah.
was, guys, dinner table, I got to tell you what God did today. I got to tell you about this song. I'm driving down the road and he plays this song and it was like it was just for me. I looked it up on my phone. Let me show you the words. Have you guys heard this song? And then, you find out it's from Taylor Swift or something, which is awesome because then your seventh grade daughter's going to love that. But that's
I
that's
do
how
this a
it can
little bit
go.
more. It's funny you say I do this a little bit more frequently now, and it's usually met with, "Is he okay?"
Yeah,
what's
he is. He's really
what's
okay.
going on?
Uh-huh.
What's the matter with this guy?
That's
But
funny.
that's the beauty of getting involved in organizations like Zoweh and attending these retreats and getting reading the material. And there's small groups covering the country now
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you can get connected with on Zoweh's website, and so I
yeah.
always encourage that. And if you don't even know where to start, certainly reach out to me and I'll steer you in the right direction. But this isn't
Mhm.
about me. It's about you, Michael. So tell everybody how they can get a hold of you, how they
That's
can get
kind.
a hold of the book,
Yeah.
and and get a hold of the podcast. Can be scary to listen to, guys. I dropped this true story, Michael. I dropped my daughter off at college. She's a freshman this year, and we get home from the drive, and I said to my wife, "I got to go for a walk." And sure enough, here's Michael and SJ on the podcast talking about Dangerous. And I thought, I listened to the whole podcast and I'm like, wait a second. I just dropped my daughter off at school. That's kind of dangerous. So
Hmm.
anyway, I say that to
Hmm.
say this. Great podcast. And I want to encourage you guys to listen to that. So anyway, Michael, tell everybody how they can
Yeah,
find
we're
all
gonna
that
take this
stuff.
podcast and transfer it over there on exploring more because we love you, Mike, love what you're doing, and yeah, we need more, boots on the ground. We need
Yeah.
more encouragement and resources. Guys need the equipping to do a very difficult job, right? To love well
Yeah.
and to be loved well is really a critical beginning to that of loving well. So I love that we get to do this with you, Mike. And so Zoweh.org, Zoweh, Zoweh.org is our website. Lots of things that are there, downloadable, free things, devotionals. You can sign up for the daily orientation, which is excerpts from the book and other team members who've written some really wonderful things to put in your inbox during the week. And yeah, the books, Amazon for King Me, you can get them on our website too. There's author resources and encouragement, journal workbooks. You can find these books on Audible. If you're an Audible, that's your deal. Then you can find King Me or Heart of a Warrior there. And yeah, I would say, man, come get away with God for a few
Oh
days.
man. Yeah.
The
Hmm.
next one is April 25th in 2024. We'll be back at Goshen where you
Yep.
were. We love
Yep.
to partner with Young Life Camps, great environments there. So that's in Virginia, but we'll have 25 states represented, 400 guys. And free time is, nap time, fly fishing, shotguns,
Yep.
frisbee, and yet I think the ingredient that we learned that was most important, right, Mike, is time away with God, time alone with God. So we don't jam the weekend with sessions, even though it's a pretty full
It's full.
three and a half
Yeah.
days. I think the secret sauce is those 30-minute breaks where you're getting to just
Oh man.
move slower, find a place to sit down and ask God a few questions and see what comes up, see what he might have to
Yeah.
say, see where he might take you. And so, yeah, that's how we would love to connect with your friends and your allies, your audience at True Man. And those are ways that, we can build
Yep.
some bridges, bro. Really love to
Amen.
do that.
Amen to that. So go check out Zoweh and Michael. This has been so awesome.
So
I've
good.
been so looking forward to this. So it was great having you on today. Appreciate you being on the True Man podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome, Mike. Thanks for all you do, man. You're doing it well, and we're proud of you. And look forward to like we like to say, let's get in some trouble together. Let's figure it out. All right,
that
friend.
that we can do, brother.
Okay,
Take
bro.
care.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Well, I've had the great benefit of reading Michael Thompson's books, being involved in Zoweh retreats, and I want to encourage you to jump on out to Zoweh's website. We've got that in the show notes. Poke around out there. If you're a man right now and you're searching for a group and you're not sure where to go, they've got a lot of resources out there for you that'll help you find something virtually around the country. And if you don't find what you're looking for, hey, reach out to me. I will help you with some additional information. But being involved with some of these folks with Zoweh and going to their retreats and gatherings, well, it's really helped shape me into the man that I am today. And I will tell you that when you get a taste of freedom and you know where, who, and what helped you get it, you just want to give back. So it was a pleasure to talk with Michael on the show today. The really cool part of all this is that you too can be shaped into the man that you want to be. And I think a lot of that comes down to coming together and working together to help each other in the kingdom. The world, man, it is marked by individualism and competition. So the concept of men actively helping each other to thrive might seem counterintuitive, but it shouldn't. It shouldn't. We're built for this. And when we dive into the principles of unity, support, and brotherhood, a powerful idea emerges, that of men as kingmakers for the kingdom of God. And my hope is that more men will come together to embrace the role of supporting and uplifting each other, creating communities where each individual is empowered to fulfill his purpose in service to God. I just think it's beautiful. And what I'm talking about here is really an invitation, a call to modern day brotherhood, if that's what you want to call it. This foundation that's rooted in brotherhood from our religious teachings. And the common thread we have as believers is this emphasis on unity for mutual support among believers. Men, as stewards of this divine message, I urge you to go beyond more and experience more camaraderie and actively engage in building each other up and learning from each other. When we learn from each other, it makes us stronger. Men, by nature, we possess unique strengths and qualities that can be harnessed for the greater good. And we all have spiritual gifts and callings that are unique, and that's a good thing. And when men invest time and energy in nurturing the potential of their fellow brothers, well, it helps them to contribute to the development of strong leaders who can serve as pillars in the kingdom of God. Now, the concept of kingmaking extends beyond personal success to fostering leadership qualities that benefit us as men so that we can lead our families, communities, and organizations well. And in this modern world, men often face silent struggles of isolation. Societal expectations coupled with the stigma surrounding vulnerability can lead to a sense of loneliness, even in the midst of being in a crowd or a group of people. But by actively helping each other, helping men break down the walls of isolation and creating a supportive network where shared experiences and challenges can be openly discussed and overcome, well, right there, that is a tenet of what Zoweh has available and is able to help people with, and they help groups around the country understand that better so their groups can be stronger and we can all work in community together. It's all about community building, really, and helping each other grow together. Because the world of isolation, well, it is fraught with danger. And it's biblical that we live and support each other. Now, one of the challenges that we face is that traditionally men have been conditioned to suppress their emotions and maintain a stoic exterior. I encourage you not to do that. Don't wear a mask and fake it till you make it, trying to tough it out. Be authentic and be vulnerable. And embrace emotional intelligence. That's essential for personal growth and spiritual well-being. You know, men serving as kingmakers for one another can provide a safe space for emotional expression, encouraging self-awareness and empathy, qualities that are all crucial for navigating the complex journey that we have towards the kingdom of God. And another thing I want to add here is the legacy of brotherhood. You know, king-making is not a one-time act, but a continuous process that creates a legacy of brotherhood. And when men invest in the success and well-being of their peers, they contribute to a cycle of positivity that extends beyond individual lifetimes. This legacy becomes a testament to the transformative power, unity, and support, inspiring future generations to continue the tradition of men as kingmakers. And finally, in a world that creates this strife, I'm just praying that men will come together, that we will roll up our sleeves and help each other understand our divine purpose and create a legacy of strength, compassion, and spiritual growth. Now, men, if you would like this kind of community, but you're not sure how to get it or what freedom even looks like for that matter, just reach out to me, Mike at truemanlifecoaching.com, and let's have a free initial conversation and talk about what that looks like. If you're not sure where to go to enjoy a men's community, reach out to me at Mike at truemanlifecoaching.com, and we'll help you find one. That's what I'm here for. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the True Man Podcast. Now, if you did, please pass this show on to another man and leave us a great review. We always love to see those reviews. And I just want to thank again Michael Thompson from Zoweh for being on the show. Now, until next week, go out and make this your very best day ever. Improve your life today with Mike Van Pelt and True Man Life Coaching. Let's develop a roadmap of discovery that leads to success and satisfaction in your life. For additional information and details on how to schedule an initial coaching call, go to truemanlifecoaching.com.